Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Step Up to the Mic. Folks, this is the place for aspiring and established speakers to take the stage, deliver their talks, and bring them directly to you. Let's find out a little bit about our featured speaker today. Our featured speaker is an author, and she's the best-selling author of two books, You Can't Win If You Don't Enter, and How to Win Cash, Cars, Trips, and More. Please welcome to the stage the contest queen, Carolyn Wilman.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here. And what I wanted to talk about today was you don't know what's going to happen. Let me say that again. You don't know what's going to happen. And most people, when they think of the unknown, worry. They always think worst case scenario. But what if you changed your mindset to best case scenario? That something extraordinary or awesome or amazing or fantastic could happen. And I want to share with you my journey with all its twists and turns, because let's face it, success does not do this. It's not a straight line. It swirls around. You two steps forward, three steps back, then you'll jettison five steps ahead. It's kind of like a board game. And you don't know where you're going to end up. Now you have a goal, but you might change course. So I started way back when I was writing my first book. I decided to go back to work. I'd had my daughter, and my background is business with marketing specialty. So I was a marketer for years. And if you've worked in that arena, you know, it's very busy, long hours. And with my daughter, I thought, I don't want to go back to that exactly because I would take my time away from her. So what can I do that would utilize all my skills and yet allow me to be a good mom the way I decided I wanted to be a mom? And I won a trip. Now, you could probably guess by the titles of my books, not only do I teach people how to find, organize, enter, and win sweepstakes, contests, and giveaways, say that 3 times fast, but I'm also a contester. And I won a trip to go meet Bob Bloomer in LA. Now, this is where fate intervened, because during our dinner with him, it was in his home, and he had said he was standing in front of his butcher block where he creates, and he said, "This is the center of my universe." And I thought, that is really profound. Remember, the universe will give you clues if you pay attention. And I thought, that's a really profound thing to tell strangers. And then he said it again, and I thought, that's a message for me. So I came home and thought, well, what's the center of my universe? And a friend asked me that question back as we were talking over coffee. And the first thing that popped into my head was contesting. And I thought, what am I going to do with that? But I knew I had a piece to the puzzle. So I started doing some research, like, how is this going to be part of it? And we went to a party. Now, this is where you also don't know if you are the piece to someone else's puzzle. Because I was at a birthday party and we were talking about all these wins that I'd had, and an offhanded comment to them, said, "You should write a book." And I thought, good idea. Then someone said to me, "Why would you give away all your secrets?" That's a good point. So I was going back to have coffee with my friend, and I took a different route. And I passed a church, and on the service announcement board, it said, "You can't lose helping others win." And I thought, that's it. I'm writing the book. I didn't even need an answer. I knew. I had a literal, people say, "God, give me a sign." I had a literal sign from God. Now, it was the days before we all had these cell phones in our pockets, and I didn't go back with my camera to take a picture, but it's burned up here. So I will never forget that. And I wrote my first book. And it was okay. It didn't sell a million copies. I read Mark Victor Hansen's book, One Millionaire, and you write a book in 30 days and make $1 million. Well, it took me 20 months, and I haven't made my $1 million yet. It hasn't sold a gazillion copies. Maybe my next book will. But I kept going, and that's part of the point that I want to show to talk about is that you keep going because you don't know what door will open next. Then I did my second edition 8 years later called How to Win Cash Cars, Trips, and More. And in that process, I had a lot of twists and turns. And one of them was I had a podcast before it was cool in 2008. And there was a woman famous for winning every prize she ever desired, including a fully furnished home. And her name was Helene Hadsel. And I had her on my podcast. And a lot of people, when you're on a podcast, the host and the guest talk off air. And off air, I asked her if I could come visit her in her home, and she said no. And 3 days later, she was highly intuitive, maybe even psychic. And she called me back 3 days later and said, "Your spirit guides are so loud, you better come." And I chuckled because I thought, well, I'm loud in real life. So, of course, my spirit guides will be loud. So I went to visit her. And while I was there, she said, "You need to teach Winovers for Wishcraft," which is, oh, you can't see it. It's the subtitle of her book, because no one else is going to do it. And at that point, she realized she knew she was getting towards the end of her life and that her children or grandchildren wouldn't be picking up the gauntlet. And then my life took a turn and I didn't do anything with it. And finally, in 2019, I got a hold of her son because two of her children had predeceased her. I got a hold of her son, Dyke, and I bought the rights to all of her works and I started updating and republishing them. So that was a surprise because I had not planned on doing that. That wasn't part of my path. But the door opened and the opportunity came, so I took it. Now, in that, I want to say that sometimes an obstacle will come and you will panic and you will think this is the end, but it could be the biggest door. So one day I get a message from Amazon, KDP, actually, it's their publishing arm. And they said, "Hey, the copyright page in your book is wrong. And if you don't fix it, we're pulling the book." It's my bestseller. You can imagine what my stomach did. Flip-flops. So I messaged them and I said, "I own the rights." They go, "Yeah, we know. Here's some information on what you need to do." They don't tell you what's actually wrong. They just tell you how it should be, and you have to figure it out yourself. But in my panic, I started reaching out to previous publishers to make sure there was no other copyright issues. And her first publisher from 1971, I got a hold of them, no problem. I got a letter. The second publisher from the 1988 edition was harder to find. And after a lot of digging, I figured out it was somebody she knew from when she worked with Jose Silva, who created the Silva method, which is still taught today, by the way. Next year is their 60th anniversary. And I found 4 random addresses for this gentleman that owned that company, which had been closed. And I mailed out the letters. And one day he phoned me. He was still alive. He'd had a stroke. He had COPD. But I sent him all of Helene's books. And he was flabbergasted because publishing when he did it and publishing now are like night and day. And I realized through talking to him that he had an entire catalog of books. So I said to him, "Who's maintaining your legacy?" It was pretty easy to figure out he was not long for this world. And he said, "Nobody." And I said, "Well, you like what I did with Helene's work. What about me doing your books?" And he said, "Absolutely." So we came to agreement and I got all the legals in place and we drove down and met him. And I bought the rights to 10 books and 5 audio series from him. So now I realized I had to start a publishing company because I had my books, Helene's books. Now I had Tag's books, and I also bought some of his wife's books. So I had all these authors that I was updating and republishing their works for. Now that came from a panic. So I had this panic where I thought I was going to lose my most important, what I deemed to be at the time, my most important work. And it opened an entire door. And I started a new company from that. Now, who knew? And again, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen, right? I didn't know I was going to suddenly get a letter from Amazon. I didn't know that it was going to open a huge door. And I know when I finish, and I have a gut feeling on this, when I finish publishing all of Tags and Judas books, the next author that I'm going to do this with will show up. I don't have to worry about that. So I want you to look at your own life and take a look back and see what doors have opened, what have shut that turned out to be a godsend later, where you think, oh no, I missed out on that opportunity. And then later you find out that, ooh, I dodged a bullet, right? They say rejection is God's protection. That's usually true. And sometimes we just don't know why, and that's okay. But you need to just take a look and see how it's all unfolded. And it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be smooth, because on this journey, we're here to learn. It's called Earth School. Helene calls it Earth School. She has a whole chapter in one of her books on that. And as long as we're here, there's always lessons to learn. Yay. But you can make it fun, because the title of her book is called The Name It and Claim It Game. We have to remember that it's a game. We're here to have fun, and we're here to play. Now, one of my favorite authors, his name is Robert Ohotto. And he wrote a book called Transforming Fate into Destiny. And one of the things he says is live as if you're the answer to somebody else's prayer. So way back when, Ralph at the party said to me, you should write a book. And it was an offhanded comment to him. But at that point, he was the answer to one of my prayers. What should I be doing next? And last year, at a summer barbecue with the family and friends, I said to him, by the way, 20 years ago, you made an offhanded comment to me that changed the trajectory of my life. And he had no idea. He's like, really? He knew I was an author and I was publishing books, but he didn't know he was the catalyst. So you could make an offhanded comment to someone and change their life. You could be kind to someone and change their life. You can send an email. You could write a book. You can do a podcast. You don't know how big your pebble is and where it will ripple out to. And I got to see this firsthand this summer, and I was flabbergasted. This summer, I had an opportunity to go visit Helene Hadzel's son, Dyke, and his wife, Fiona. And I brought my boyfriend, George, down with me because I was talking about all these people and the places, and I wanted him to see what I've been working on for all this time and meet these wonderful people. So we went to Alvarado, Texas. And one day while we were there, we took Dyke and Fiona out for a late lunch. They're older and they like to have their big meal mid-afternoon. So it's after the lunch rush, before the dinner rush. Real senior special kind of time to eat a big meal. We went out to a barbecue restaurant in Texas. You gotta have barbecue when you're in Texas. And we were having this fantastic late lunch. And Dyke started telling us a story about the house that they had won. His mother had won a fully furnished home, and it was in Irving, Texas. It was built in Irving, Texas. She tells the story in the Name It and Claim It game. And after they'd been in the house a few years, the foundation started to shift, and the houses there are built on pillars into the earth and down to bedrock. But it had started to shift. I looked it up later, or recently rather, and it turns out they're in they have dynamic soil there. Sounds a little bit off, but this is a common problem that the foundations need to be fixed. And so he's telling me how his dad had to dig under the house to fix the foundation and all the things that he did. And I thought that was fascinating. Anyway, later that afternoon, they gave me a photo album of old pictures that hadn't seen the light of day in probably 25 years. And included in that were the publicity photos that Formica took when they awarded the house to the Hadsels. And they were fantastic. I have them on my website if you want to go see them. And one of the things I wanted to do while I had George down in Texas was to visit that house because I had met the owners the previous year and give them a copy of these photos because I thought, well, they would love to have a copy of the photos. So that morning we went to Walmart. I made a copy of the photos. I got a card just in case they weren't home so I could put them in their mailbox, write a little note. And off we went to Irving. Well, I got there and I knocked on the door. I saw the cars in the driveway. I thought, oh, great, they're home. I knocked on the door and the gentleman answered and he said, oh, I was looking for your card because I'm having a problem with the foundation and I was wondering if you knew anybody that knew the history of it. And I thought, what? Are you kidding me? So he was having a problem, put his prayer out to the universe, like, I need help with this foundation. And I brought him the answer. So I pulled up my phone and I said, I gave him Dyke's number and I text Dyke and I said, hey, the owner at the Rochelle house, because it was on Rochelle Avenue, is having problems with the foundation. I told him you understood what had happened with the house and I gave him your number, expect him to call. I was the answer to someone's prayer and I recognized it in real time. But I bet you there are thousands of other incidences in my life and yours too, where you're the answer to someone's prayer and have no clue. So I want you to start going through life expecting the best, believing that wonderful things can happen out of adversity, and living as if you're the answer to someone else's prayer. Because, again, you don't know what's going to happen. Because there's so many adventures that you can have if you just open yourself up to it.
Carolyn Wilman, everybody. Oh my goodness, Carolyn. That's such an uplifting topic. I love the way you framed all that. And I mean, honestly, it really explains a lot about, what made you get into this entire line of work and write these books. I mean, people so often look at things like sweepstakes or contests and whatnot, and they think, oh, I can't win. And that's exactly what you're saying, it sounds like, is, you kind of have to believe it before it's ever going to happen for you. Am I right?
You do. And the title of my first book is You Can't Win If You Don't Enter. Now, I do lose more. Unlike Helene, the hobby has changed a lot. She was entering the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and the hobby's changed dramatically since then. So I lose more than I win, but I don't look at what I lost. I just look at what I win. And and actually, even the ones I don't win, it's part of the hobby to me, is the fun of sitting down and entering. And I do it every day. Just like brushing your teeth, you do it every day. And I think, oh, that trip would be fun. Ooh, I'd love that prize pack. Ooh, that gift card. Ooh, I could use that cash. And I dream of all of them. And then some of them show up. And I am a little bit biased. I do say it is the best hobby in the whole world.
Well, it sounds like you've got the numbers to prove it. I think I read someplace that you've won over $300,000 worth of prizes and gifts and stuff. Is that
Yeah, it's
accurate or
more
is
than
that
that
low?
now. It's past four. I just did a video. Um, I've officially won this year 100 prizes. I counted. I started keeping a spreadsheet. Then there was a few years I fell off, but this year I said, no, no, I'm going back to the tracking because what happens is you win something small and you don't count it, you forget about it. and you only think, well, I didn't win very much. But if you count literally everything you win, from a free soda in some of these games you might play online
Hmm.
that are a company might be putting on, right up to, I think the most expensive thing we won was George won playoff tickets. My boyfriend George won playoff tickets to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, those tickets I think were $400 each. Plus, they were in a box with swag and food and everything. So that was $1,000
Wow.
worth. Yeah, I know, right? For a hockey game, but they had a ball. Him and his best friend went, of course, and they had an absolute ball. So when would you, that's the other thing I like, is that you win prizes that just aren't in your daily life. Like, when is, first of all, it's not in the budget. We wouldn't spend that kind of money on hockey tickets.
Mhm.
And also the experience of it. Like, they're in marketing, I'm also a marketer. They call them experiential prizing. And those are my favorite kinds of things to win, because it's stuff you wouldn't come across, or you might not try, or you might not go to.
Right.
Yeah, on my sweepstakes bucket list, I want to win a trip to the Super Bowl. We're putting it out there.
There you go. Make sure you put that way out there. That would be one heck of a prize. Now back in the day, so to speak, because I remember when I was, younger, the Publishers Clearinghouse and things like that. When the lottery came along, you bought a ticket. So there's some things that I think we all sort of accept as being legit in terms of this thing. But once the online stuff started, then I think that one of the biggest fears people have is when they're potentially entering something is this a scam? Do you have any advice for folks on how they might be able to avoid, what may or may not be a quote scam in this particular area?
Yeah, on my Contest Queen website, I actually have a whole section on that, because it is one of the biggest fears that people have. And the first thing I tell people is just set up accounts and an email address just for entering sweepstakes. So I have, like, you won't see me entering sweepstakes from my Contest Queen, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. You'll see me entering them from my personal account. I enter those from my personal account because I keep business and personal separate. And I have an email address that I use just for entering sweepstakes. So I keep that separate from my work. And a lot of things I'm really good at, because I made all the mistakes. So then I teach people what not to do. And sometimes, even as a seasoned sweeper, as I say, I still make silly mistakes, because you get excited, or you read too quickly, or you forget about something. Because, oh, I'm human. And I have a whole list of silly sweepstakes mistakes that I made on TikTok. And I just shake my head at myself. I'm like, how did I do that? I know better.
I love that
But it's fun. You can only laugh at yourself.
for sure. Do you have particular guidelines that you use? Like, hey, if they're offering this, I'll enter it, and if it's maybe this, then maybe I won't. Is that just something that you have set up for yourself,
Oh
or
yeah.
do you?
I I found the older I get, the pickier I am.
Okay.
I used to enter for everything, but now I think I see tickets for some show or something, and I think, okay, when is the show? Do I want to drive downtown? I don't know. Do I want to be out that late? So, um, or where would I put that in the house?
Hmm.
Actually, it was funny, because I was entering for this fridge, these small fridges that all the drink companies give out. A
Uh-huh.
lot of them have them customized. And there was one that was really cool. I'm like, oh, I'm entering that. My daughter said, where are we going to put it? I said, oh, I'll figure that out after I win it. Like, that's a problem for another day.
That's
I'm like,
great.
let's win it first and then worry about where I want to put it. It's just super cool. I'm going to enter for it.
That's great. In terms of doing this, let's say somebody's hearing you, they're very inspired, and they're like, "Man, I'm going to do this. I want to go win some stuff." Is there a, particular way that you recommend folks start if they've never, done this before? Maybe a level you start at, or a product that you start with, or anything that can kind of get your feet wet in the game.
Yeah, first thing I always say again is set up that email address, but then use a sweepstakes site, because they aggregate all the legitimate sweepstakes and have done a lot of the legwork for you. So one of the things I have, and I'm in the process, I'm so excited about this, because it's been 10 years since I've had a redesign of my website. Now the mapping is done, but the graphics are a little janky right now. But that's the process. You can't wait till things are perfect until you move forward. You just got to do it.
Right.
And so I've got a place where you can literally find, it says find sweepstakes right on my homepage. And you click on it, and there's a list for US, for Canada, and for international of sites that list legitimate sweepstakes. And a lot of them pre-vet them for you. So when you go to the listing, it'll already have who's eligible to enter because that's what you're looking for. Am I eligible? Because, for example, sometimes in the US, it's limited states that can enter. So you can check to see if you're eligible. When does it end? Like, is it ending today or tomorrow or in a year from now? I don't like those long sweepstakes. I might not enter if it's open for too long.
Okay.
And then frequency, am I entering daily? Is it one time only? Is it one time per household? Is it weekly? You have to know how often you can enter and any other specific clauses. And these sites vet those for you and outline that to make it really easy and quick for you to enter. And I have a whole list of them, and there's different types. There's some that are like blogs, some that are like groups, some that are like newsletters. Some have Discord communities, some have different areas that people can connect with other sweepers. So fun. I'll interject here. There's actually an annual National Sweepstakes Convention every year,
Oh,
and
wow.
sweepers gather to hang out and have fun for 4 days. This year, this year it was in Little Rock, Arkansas. Next year, it's in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the year after that, it's going to Orlando, Florida. So just saying, if you want to hang out with 600 to 1,000 crazy people, I call it the good crazies. We get together and we actually all help each other win. It's a great positive mindseted community because literally there's a room of winners, which is kind of crazy. And that's the other thing that I didn't expect when I started entering. I've made friends for life from this hobby. Like when I was going through a really dark time in my both personal and business, I had sweeper friends say, come stay with us, get out of the house for a while. You need to get out of there and just reset yourself. And I ended up doing a couch surfing sweepstakes tour. And I drove from home all the way down to Florida and back, staying with sweepers the entire way. It's the
Wow.
best community, just saying. And
That sounds fantastic.
it was fantastic, especially since I was at a low point because we all get those dark nights in our life. We all get to go through one. Yay. Thankfully, mine's behind me. And I had a community that was there that I did not expect that. So there's good people out there. There's a lot of good people out there.
I love that.
But
And
back to the entering, use the sweepstakes site and well, that's where I said you know, some of them have Discord groups, but it makes it much easier for you. And there's different styles. So I tell people poke around, find one you like, because some people like this style, some people like that style. And when you're having fun, that's when you win. Because if it feels like work, stop. This isn't supposed to be work. It's supposed to be fun.
nice. Nice. I appreciate the answer. I love the talk. I love your energy. Give everybody your contact information. Let's make sure everybody knows how to reach you.
Well, if you want to learn how to find, organize, enter, and win sweepstakes contests and giveaways, just go to contestqueen.com and stay tuned because we're getting a refresh. I'm so excited. And if you want to just check out all the books and learn about Helene Hadsel and Tag Powell, go to wordsforwinning.com. And I have so many free resources there. I have a free meditation you can download, free interviews you can listen to, articles, lost articles that she had written that are now republished, which is kind of exciting that her work is still out there, that I'm able to bring it back, which is nice.
That's cool. That's perfect. All right. Folks, the author of If You Can't Win If You Don't Enter, and How to Win Cash, Cars, Trips, and More, Carolyn Wilman. Carolyn, that was absolutely a fantastic talk. Had so much fun listening to it. And again, I just love your energy. I mean, the way you deliver it, you can tell you're just having a great time doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great having you here
I
today.
love being here. I like sharing this stuff.
Thank you for coming on. All right, folks, that's been another just spectacular episode of step up to the mic. And if you're an aspiring or current speaker and you want to bring your talk to the masses, just like Carolyn did today, you know what? I tell you what, message us right now. Just sit down, message us, send us a message. Never, ever, ever stop talking. All right. Keep on talking about what you want to do and let us help you to step up to the mic.